case selected is regarding a dispute between Burkina Faso and Niger states. This dispute was submitted to the Court of Justice in 2010. Now, this hearing consists of two nations debating on the applicable source to use in this case to settle the dispute. Burkina Faso insisted on using the 1927 French colonial decree, which is the 1927 arrêté, because both nations were once a part of the French West Africa. But Niger argued that the decree was not enough to define the frontier in specific area. So Niger requests the court to use the 1960 map of the French Institute Geographic to prove each territorial sovereignty. But in the end, the judgment was made in 2013, and each of the states applied the judgment in 2015 and 2016.
This is a frontier dispute case involving two African countries, which are Burkina Faso and the Republic of Niger. Both nations were part of French West Africa until 1960, in which that year they have attained their independence from the colonizer. Both of them drafted special agreement in order to settle these disputes. They also hired Joint Technical Commission on Demarcation. From Article 2 of the special agreement, we can derive two main issues in this case. First, both countries asked the International Court of Justice to ascertain the course of the boundary between the two countries in the sector from the astronomical marker of Tong Tong to the beginning of Boto Bend. Second, they asked the International Court of Justice (ICJ) to record the parties' agreement on the results of the work of the Joint Technical Commission on Demarcation in regards to two regions, as shown in the slide. Four arbiter dicta have chosen views from Judge Cancado Trindade, in which he stated under human factors and frontiers. He states, people and territory are inextricably linked, which means the people and territory cannot be separated. It is not two different issues which are not related to each other. He respectfully disagreed with a learned scholar named Arnold, whereby the learned scholar stated nomadism is essentially a society without a history. The judge disagreed and said that history is part of civilization. All the things they do in their life are considered as history itself. For example, the foods they ate, the clothes they wear, their shelter, all of this are counted as history. The judge also stated that nomads are ancient types of community. They consist of such a complex cultural traits, and therefore, when determining the border of the regions, the one should not simply draw entirely and admittedly artificial lines which overlooks the human elements, the centrality, which in his view is human being. Therefore, he is of view that the court should consider the nomadic people as well when they are determining the border. For the parties' agreement, I would like to divide their arguments into two factors, which are Terra sector and Say sector. For the Terra sector, Burkina views that the two straight lines connect the three frontier marks in this area, the Tong Tong market and the Tao market and Bosbago. Meanwhile, Niger viewed that the line from Tong Tong to Tao follows not one but two straight line sections, and as it passed through the Vibori market and before reaching to the Tao market, and from there the frontier line basically follows the line of the IGN map 30. For C sector, Burkina claimed that the line forms a notable comprised of three sections, the first drifting back up to the river Sierba to a point known as P1, from where the second runs in the northwesterly direction as far to a point P2 and joins the third, which descends in a straight line to the south until it makes intersection of the river Sierba with the sea parallel to a point known as P3. Meanwhile, the line claimed by Niger thus departs from the tri-point of the former boundaries of the settlers of Say, Tilaberi, and Dori, reaching the Sierba Serba approximately at the level of the sea parallel.
It was unanimously agreed that 3 experts were to be nominated in accordance with Article 7, Paragraph 4 of the Special Agreement of 24 February 2009 to help decide the precise coordination of the determined territories. These precise coordinations that the parties will determine is a territory from the Tong Tong astronomical marker situated at the point with geographic coordinates to the Tau astronomical marker. It was also decided that from Tau marker to the river Seva at Bosibango, the court decided to follow the straight line, also dubbed as the IGN line, shown in the map of Institute Geographic National or the 1960 map. Now, the territory of Bosibango to the intersection of the Seva with the sea parallel was then decided by following the medial line of the river Seva upstream until its intersection with the IGN line, in which the final top of the longitude would bring the sea parallel intersecting with river Seva. Then the intersection to Butelben was decided from the Tau astronomical marker. The course of the frontier follows the line that appears on the map until its intersection with the median line of the river Seva at the point of geographic coordinates given by the court. Now, the borders determined by the court had resulted in Burkina Faso being assigned to over 700 square kilometers, whereas Niger is over 200 square kilometers. The reasoning behind the Tong Tong to Tau marker judgment is the fact that it was a topographical error in the 1935 agreement that Niger was to rely on, but Burkina Faso was to rely on 1927 arrêté, in which the court favoured. However, in the case of Tau marker to the river Seva, the reasoning is a bit different than the previous one because the 1927 Arate is believed to be erred in this regard, so the court decided to use the 1960 map in deciding this case. Now, the reasoning behind the last territories judgment is the fact that even though Niger argued that two countries had agreed upon the line stated in the 1960 map, however, the court made it clear that if the 1927 Arate was clear on which border is which, then it should be followed. Lastly, in the judgment of the territories, concerns over local populations play a huge factor in deciding territories of Bos-Bango to the intersection of Seva with the sea parallel, in which that both villages need access to water, and that plays a huge part in deciding this judgment. Now, when it comes to dissent, Judge ad hoc that differs from the majority of the judges, in which he mostly disagreed with the court's analysis of the 1927 Arate, in which, in contrast to the court, he believed that the Arate has a constitutive character. He also, in the matter of the village of Bagare, he does not believe that the practice should followed by the colonial authorities concerning the execution of the Arate. And he also believed that the rationale in the case of Bangare should be the same judgment of the Osaltane and Petelkon, in which the effectivities is rejected.
Most African Republic borders have been drawn haphazardly without any consideration for the ethnic or cultural traits. The European boundaries force significantly different opposing cultures to coexist within the borders of a single state, or they split the same ethnic groups. This has always been the source of disputes in the African continent. Therefore, the African Union Border Program was created to prevent and resolve these disputes, as well as to promote regional and continental growth in the African continent. Therefore, this program urged the African states to properly define their own boundaries. it is crucial to emphasize that political will is required to ensure that the boundaries are successfully delineated, even though there is an intervention from the International Court of Justice rulings. Such process can take way too long, and this has occurred in the case of 2002 International Court of Justice judgment on the land and maritime boundary between Cameroon and Nigeria, which took 4 years to properly divide the territory. Therefore, we hope that both of the countries can refrain from any sort of provocations and arise any disputes relating to the territory, and the result of the demarcation can lead to a more stable situation, especially near the impacted border.
Now, it is clear that in settling this dispute, the ICJ had exercised its full power as accordance with its provision laid down in the Statute of International Court of Justice. It is also clear that the court resorted to equity as a method to reach a just judgment, particularly equity infraligium, which is a method of equity of interpretation of the law. Not only the court rely on equity alone, but also considered general principles such as the French Legislative 1927 arrêté, regulative text, maps such as 1960 map, and also colonial activities.
In conclusion, the court stated that the 1927 arrêté was the instrument to be used for the boundary delimitation, but if that arrêté agreement is not sufficient, then the court will refer to 1960 IGN map and also apply the concept of intangibility of colonial frontiers. International Court of Justice (ICJ) also states that it hoped that the parties, both Burkina Faso and Niger, would consider the needs of the nomadic peoples and nomadic peoples communities and the challenges that may arise for them due to the frontier, due to the divided territory.